I'm Fox 10 investigative reporter Justin Lum, and on this Vlogcast episode of the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell case, we're talking about, you guessed it, competency. If you follow the case, you know by now Lori Vallow has officially been deemed fit for trial after a long stay at an Idaho state hospital. So let's dive into what's next. Now it's time to officially be arraigned on murder charges for the deaths of her kids, JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan, as well as Tammy Daybell, the first wife of her co-defendant and husband, Chad Daybell. By April 19th, when Lori is arraigned, it will be close to 2 years since JJ and Tylee's remains were found on Daybell's property, and nearly a year since the co-defendants were indicted by a grand jury for conspiring to kill these three family members. JJ Vallow's grandparents will be there for Lori's arraignment, and we talked in depth about what this all means.
We haven't seen her since I guess that was her arraignment in March 6th or 7th of 2020. And this is the first time we'll be able to see her since they found the kids, since all these other things happened. So it's very important to us to make sure she knows we are following this through and we'll never stop.
You know, when we were in court with her, not one time did she bother to look at us, her son, or anybody that was sitting with us. Not one time. This time, I think at some point, she's going to have to look us in the eyes. And I cannot wait, because we are not giving up on this. She has played the system her whole life, and we're not going to let her get away with this. And we're going to be there in full force with so many other of our friends and supporters and everybody that supports us through television, through the Facebook, social media. And I can tell you, since the moment that I got your post, our phones have not quit going off there. It's the worldwide support, and we're going to be there. She's not going to get away with this. He's not going to get away with this. And we're going to be there. Absolutely, we're going to be there.
And Justin, I also, when you called earlier to ask about doing a Zoom, I was on the phone with my son, Todd, and he asked to release a statement. Yep. Since he can't do a Zoom. And so he's never done this before. So anyway, I'm going to read what he said, that he's extremely happy the case is now moving forward. A huge weight has been lifted, and words can't explain how he feels. And he said, this is now this is the beginning of their end. And he is very happy that he will be at the trials next January.
Yep.
And again, so for people who don't know, this is coming from JJ's biological father, Todd, your son.
Todd Trahan, JJ's biological dad, yes.
Yep.
Now, you brought up a good point, because the last time you saw her face to face was March 6th, when she was extradited, after she was extradited to Idaho from Hawaii. Ever since then, it's been Zoom hearings, and the indictment came. You saw her on this little bitty screen, but now you can actually see her in person, and she's finally being arraigned on the murder charges, because people forget that she's actually never been officially arraigned. She's accused, right. But now it's time to proceed with the case on her behalf, whereas Chad's case has been moving along, and now there's no severance. They're going to stand trial together as we know it. But how frustrating was it to see, all these court filings, especially recently on Lori's behalf, was sealed from the public, the unknown of it all? Was that frustrating?
Honestly, I try not, it is frustrating, but I just try to take it in stride, because we have a marathon to run, and this is we can't wear ourselves out worrying about every little heartbeat of the movement of this case. We can't. And I've actually backed off of social media. I can't watch all this all the time and expect to regain some type of life. So I've backed off of that. But my big thing is seeing her in court this time. Last time she had on her lipstick and was rolling her eyes in the court. This time, I don't know about the lipstick, but I doubt she'll be rolling her eyes. And
And if
that
she
is what I want to
does,
see.
it don't make any difference.
Yeah.
That's,
If she's still smug.
she's on the other side of that fence now. She's on the other side of that gate. And at this point, she's still going to play the system. Don't ever think she won't try to. That's just Lori. It is.
It has been now like a near 3-year journey for all of you. Do you feel any closer to justice with this development?
Yes, yes. This is honestly probably the closest I've felt to justice since everything began. Because at this time in 2019, Charles had just moved to Houston. I was there with he and JJ, helping him get settled. And I think it was April the 12th, actually the next day or two, that she went to Houston after being gone for her 58 plus another 12. So it was 60 or 70 days she was gone without seeing JJ. That's another anniversary that I think it's tomorrow or the next day that she landed in Houston. She and Tyler drove to Houston.
Tomorrow. It is tomorrow.
And so, just again, another anniversary and something great like this is happening. So that just shows me that the Lord's watching and he's got his hand on this.
I'd like to ask, despite the extension on the mental health commitment, you said before when we talked, you felt Lori was malingering through all this. Do you still feel like she never needed any treatment at all? Do you feel like she's thought about what has transpired in the state hospital?
I don't think she has thought about anything. I honestly, I won't know until I see her. And that if she's stone faced, then to me, she has set her mind on believing Chad's craziness, and that's where her mind's going to stay. And I do believe she's that strong-willed enough to keep that separation there. So I don't know. I won't know till I see her. I don't know how we're going to feel seeing her. I don't know. I just know that we'll be there, and just that this is very important to us for her to know that we are right there. Just like Larry couldn't attend Chad's preliminary or whatever that hearing was in August of last year, but it's just very important for us to be there and for them to know we're there.
We also caught up with Nate Eaton of East Idaho News on what to expect at this arraignment, Lori finally returning to jail, and buzz in the area as things look to be on track. Nate, nearly a year we've been waiting for Lori Vallow to be deemed competent. We've got to assume the reports from the Department of Health and Welfare showed enough evidence to get her restored. But what are you looking forward to see during Lori Vallow's arraignment?
I think the big thing that people will be watching for is, does she behave the same as she has behaved at previous hearings? She's kind of had this attitude all along. You remember the first hearing, Justin, she walked in with that bright lipstick, the curled hair, kind of had an attitude of, I don't really care, this isn't important to me. If she comes in next Tuesday and has a look of concern or a look of compassion or really any sort of other different type of aura around her, then that might show that something changed. It'll be interesting to see too how she looks. I know that in the facility where she's been, the people that stay there are able to wear normal clothes, so street clothes, and they're able to do their makeup and they're able to do their hair. And the doctors want those people to live as normal lives as possible. So she's kind of has not been as in a restrictive environment as she will now that she's going back to the jail.
Yeah, way back when we saw her extradited, she seemed as if she didn't know what was really happening or didn't seem to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. You saw her smile and with that red lipstick, and then later on, as we saw in hearings, she had the mask on during the pandemic. So it's going to be interesting to see the person in that courtroom on April 19th. Now, she has to be transferred from the Department of Health to Fremont County Sheriff, but that is not where she will end up as far as jail, right?
Yeah, so all of the female inmates from Fremont County, where she's charged, and where Chad is, the female inmates are actually housed in Madison County, which is in Rexburg. It's the same facility she was at before. In fact, she might go back to the same pod. We know that she didn't have a roommate before, a cellmate. And so it's very well likely that she could be in isolation again. At one point, she did have a pod mate for a couple of days, but then from what we understand, she was on her own.
And let's talk about the buzz here, because we're going to have media access, right? With this arraignment, things are starting to get back to normal in that aspect where you can be inside that courtroom. And we know that the public there, they're going to want to show up to the courthouse. Does this remind you of March 2020 in some ways, what we're about to witness?
It's funny you say that, because it's almost like a duplicate of that. We're waiting for Lori to arrive, which we were back in March of 2020. We're waiting for a big court appearance, the first time we're going to see her in court, which happened back in March of 2020. And I imagine a lot of people will come to that. And it's open to the public. However, the judge, from what I understand, in the next 24 hours or so, is going to issue a courtroom code of conduct that every observer has to participate or has to agree to. And same with the media. There'll be a media code of conduct. You have to remember, this hearing for Lori is going to be very short. They're going to read her charges. She will plead guilty or not guilty, and that'll be it. I don't think they're going to discuss bail, because that's come and gone. They could bring it up, but I don't think they're going to. There is a lengthy list of charges, but you remember when Chad did this last summer, he was very stoic during all of this. So will Lori have the same, will she be stoic? I doubt she'll be masked. She'll have to say guilty or not guilty. So we'll actually hear her speak at least one or two words.
We've covered news in East Idaho for a long time. Give us the breakdown on Lori's public defender, Jim Archibald. Last time we talked, Mark Means was still on the case as co-counsel. Since then, he's been disqualified. We haven't seen any filings from Archibald during the stay on Lori's case. It seems he's been quiet.
Yeah, Jim Archibald is very experienced. He's been a public defender, I don't know, probably 20 years now. He has had high-profile cases that have made national news. He's done multiple death penalty cases. He doesn't care about media attention. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight. He wants to do his job. I don't think you're going to see a lot of filings like you were with the previous attorney, as far as, call her by a specific name or investigate certain things. Jim Archibald is here to defend his client. Now, he will need co-counsel. He can't handle this case alone. So that'll likely be coming in the next few weeks. There'll be more attorneys assigned to the case. He is a public defender. He is death penalty certified, though. So if the prosecution goes for the death penalty, there's no issues there. But he's a pretty solid attorney. And I think that he's worked with Rob Wood before. He's worked with Lindsay Blake, I believe. He's known in the area. The judges know him. And he's got a pretty good reputation.
Being that he is death penalty certified, does that indicate that we expect prosecutors to file any notice to seek the death penalty within 60 days of Lori being arraigned?
Well, they have to. If they're going to go for the death penalty, you're right. They've got to. From that, the clock starts the minute she is arraigned. With Chad, I don't remember, Justin, you might remember better than I think they waited a few weeks before they said, yes, we're going for the death penalty. We could get some indication at the arraignment. I mean, it's possible that the prosecutor could say something there, but they have to officially file it. I predict, if you were to ask me based on history, they will go for it, because they can always take it off the table later. They can't add it. So if they go for it now, they put it on the table, they can take it off for a plea agreement, or if they decide to change their mind. That's what will happen. And then I spoke with a prosecutor today who told me that the jury will be focused on the charges, the murder charges. They're not really going to focus on the death penalty. They're going to focus on those charges. And then if they are found guilty of the charges, They then decide if they get the death penalty. Any other sentence, the judge will hand down. So the jury will decide, yes, death, but if it's not death, the jury won't decide. The judge will say, okay, they get life in prison, they get 20 years, whatever it is. It's only if it's death that the jury decides.
All right, lastly, the debate between having the trial in Ada County or Fremont County. As of now, we know it's going to be in Ada County. At this point, I am projected to cost taxpayers double what it would be in Fremont based on the numbers that we've seen, upwards of $350,000 or so. I'm sure that could fluctuate based on personnel, travel, etc. But why is this still such an issue between both prosecution and defense?
Well, I think because Fremont County is such a small county, the prosecutors are making the argument that this will tax them if they have to go to Boise. And not only will it tax them, it will tax all of the witnesses, it will tax the prosecution, it will be a heavy, heavy expense. And so we think that next Tuesday, the prosecutors are going to break it all down with the numbers. I mean, you've seen the presentation and it's talked about what those numbers are. And there's a chance that Judge Boyce might change his mind and say, okay, we will leave it here. Instead, let's bring the jurors in, sequester them at a hotel or something, or let them go home on weekends. It's totally up to him. It would be interesting if that is the case, or if the judge just says, no, it's too much of a risk. We're just going to keep it in Ada County.
Comment below on what you think. How will Lori Vallow plead to the charges against her, and will prosecutors seek the death penalty for her like they are with Chad Daybell? Please subscribe to our channel and we'll see you for the latest major development in this case.